some for some years, and then he suddenly stopped for 2 or 3 years before. So we need to write, and the duration is very important regarding COPD, regarding this type of patients like today. So we need some sample sentence to denote this time. So what I thought, I write personally that Mr. Matthews had been smoking for 35 years before quitting it 7 years ago.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, so that's like past perfect and past and simple past. So you could do, I'll just put this in the chat box. You could say something like, or you could say he used to smoke. You know, so you can say that he used to smoke, he had been a smoker, or he was a smoker. It depends if you want to include the time, you know. So you say he.
Time is important here.
Well, it maybe the time itself is not so important as the fact that he stopped, and it's some years ago. You say he used to smoke for 35 years until quitting. And you could say 7 years ago, or you could say simply until quitting in, 2011. So you could do something such as that. Yeah.
Okay.
Instead of saying 35 years and 7 years and this and this and this, it's more precise. You say, okay, he used to be a smoker. You could use that. You know, he used to smoke. He was a long-term smoker. However, it's been 7 years now since he stopped. There's lots of different ways that you could talk about this.
That's fine. It means sometimes with simple past we can use duration like for.
Well, usually we use a simple past when it's a single past event or action, and we know exactly when it finished. So like, you know, like the usual one, he presented on the 22nd, just as a random example. So present, simple past, presented, because we know exactly when. On the 22nd, he presented. So that's a single past event. We know exactly when it finished. You know, so you could use the simple part. I mean, it's a good idea to use a mixture of structures. What is not so good for the reader, and also in terms of scoring, is if you're using the same structure all the way in the letter. They want to see a progression. They want to see a variety. Well, you know, for like a high score, 440 upwards, heading for an A, they want you to show a nice wide range of structure. So if you're telling a story, it's a chronology, essentially. It's a chronology. It's in some of them, it's a narrative. So first this happened, then this, and this, and this, and this, and this. So you can use a mixture of tenses. You can use a simple past, past continuous, present perfect continuous. So you could use simple past. He smoked. He was a smoker. You can use present perfect. He has been a smoker. Past perfect. He had been a smoker. Present perfect past perfect continuous. He had been smoking. You know, it's like what, 5 or 6.
I can get the idea.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much.
So,
my second question: in one sentence,
what?
In one sentence, can we use simple past and present perfect together in one sentence?
Such as in what? Have you got an example there?
Such as he experienced no chest pain, however, he has been However, he has reported sleepless nights recently.
Well, if you're talking about some activity, so if he's reporting to you at once, again without an example, it's kind of hard. So what? So you said something like what he presented? What he said? What?
He experienced no chest pain.
See what he experienced?
No chest pain.
Okay, he experienced. Well, he experienced no weight. So if you're using the simple past, then you would have to say when he experienced. It's simple past. So
Yes.
we have so either in the sentence or somewhere in the context in the previous sentence, we have to know when that past event occurred. So he experienced. So again, it's kind of hard to like say without having some particular example sentences, you know, to have a look at. I mean, you can, if you want to type some out, I can take a look at those. Anyway, listen, I'm going to get on with the letters now because we've got 2 from this morning and we've got some more this afternoon. So I'm going to stop this. I'm going to do a screen share. Where are we? I'll do it here. Don't want that. And let me see, I'll put on the chat and put that there. Okay, get this out of the other way as well. Make sure we've got the changes on. Okay. So this is the 2 letters that we didn't have time for this morning. So we'll get on with those and manage participants. And I'll put this here, and if you want to raise your hand, you can do so. So I'm writing to request your urgent assessment and management of Mr. Matthias, who I provisionally down. Now that's pretty good, right? I'm writing to request your urgent assessment of management. So it's not a split up. It's all the request part at the start. So I am writing to ask you to do something for this person who I diagnosed with, etc. So that's pretty good. That is pretty good. In terms of medical history, okay, now I would maybe mention the date of when he presented. You know, so what is, I don't know in those case notes if it does give you a date. Those case notes were not very good, but you know, we have to work with what we have got. So I would, you know, initially, so when you're talking about the simple past here, presented, as Shahid was just asking about, initially, okay, but we usually need to know when this past action occurred. So initially, Mr. Matthias presented on the 23rd of the 5th, blah, 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 with a 2 months history. So you know, so either at the start or here, we would need a date of some kind when the past action occurred. And not being able to sleep and lie down the past few days with no evidence of chest pain. That sounds good, yeah? That sounds pretty good. And today's review was a febrile BP chest examination revealed no sign of Q was present 6 months ago. Okay. Now this isn't bad at all. This isn't bad at all. It's very concise. Let me just check the word count. Where are we? Sorry. 203. That's pretty good. Now that's very concise. Right? I would maybe put in again some of the dates, but it's very concise, direct, and to the point. I maybe would have put his medical history a little bit lower down, maybe, because it's urgent. So I would have maybe put this first, maybe, and then put the history afterwards. You could do that. But that is not too bad at all. It's very concise and to the point. So that sounds pretty good. Somebody's got a question. Hello. Turn your microphone on.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Fine.
Okay, sir, in the second paragraph, he wrote, in terms of his medical history, he has a significant history. So, in this sentence, it is not, don't you think it is redundant, history and then significant history?
Well, it's not. I mean, the whole thing is like 203 words. If he'd, well, don't know, he, she, if whoever had written this and they'd done 270, 80, 250, and it was far too long, and then redundancy or tautology could be taken into account. But this is pretty good. I mean, it's concise, it's direct, it's to the point. So you could say he has a significant, in terms of medical history, he has a significant history. You could maybe take it out or change it just for the reader, just for, because of stylistics. Maybe for the reader, we don't want to keep reading the same words over and over. So we could do. Or you could say, for your information, or please note, so instead of saying in terms of his medical history, use different expression. Oops, just type it out. So, something like, I don't know, please note, or for your information, or something such as that. Yeah. So you don't have to, you can either change that with a different one. It doesn't make a lot of difference. I mean, using one word twice in a sentence, that's not the most important thing that you've got to worry about. It's just not. If your grammar is terrible, if it's too long, and if you haven't done what you should do, then maybe. But this letter, right, look, it gets to the point, straight to the point, right? It's about this person, his age. There's no redundancy here. It's not telling us about he's got a wife and kids, he's a cabinet maker, blah, blah, blah. It's getting straight to the point. I want you to do this, urgent, because I think this. And then it explains why. That's what the sorry, that's what the examiners want. They want that, right? Task, response. That's the most important thing. Do you do as the task asks you to do? A grammar mistake here, if it's just one or two, an extra word here or there, irrelevant. Unless you're aiming for a perfect score, a 500 or whatever, it doesn't matter. In the scheme of things, it doesn't. This letter is pretty good, I have to say. Okay, moving along. So whoever wrote that, I think, is it Warder? I don't know, but it's pretty good. So what's the next one? Mr. Alan Mateus. You could put RE. I think that's better, referring to, instead of just, writing to refurbish patients, it's an amount, it's for an emergent, you mean emergency, because emergent and emergency are not the same. Emergent means something is emerging, it's coming through. Emergency means it's urgent. And emergency evaluation, appropriate treatment. Okay, that is pretty good. Because we don't have the DOB there, so you need to include it, is like age. Okay, for an emergency instead of urgent, because I suppose, urgent is, well, it's not exactly the same, strictly speaking, as emergency, but it's pretty close. It's close enough to do the job. Oh, right. What do we do? Why are you telling us this? He's a retired cabinet maker. He's married. He likes playing chess and watching sports on Saturdays. Do we need this? No. And even if we did, would we need it here? Don't think so. So that introduction is good, but then we have irrelevant detail that we do not need. So he had smoked, so we've got past perfect, okay, and ceased, simple past, okay. That's good. So we don't really need that. I would take it out. I would put this a little bit down here in terms of medical history. Has diabetes. Furthermore, he had. Does he not have it still? Because this is in the past. Chest examination and version T wave kind of game. Okay, if you had to include this, if you think it's pertinent, you could say in terms of his medical and social history, and you could put it at the bottom. Additionally, please note that he had smoked, or he's used to be a smoker, etc. Today, he presented to me complaining to anything of he has not been able to do exercise and sleep for a few days ago. For a few days. Based on the above, was diagnosed. Currently, he was referred. Well, he wasn't referred to the reader. You are referring him now. Yeah. So we can't use simple past in passive because you are referring him to the reader of this letter now by writing. So we can't use that. We'd appreciate if you could take him to care over. Okay. If you could take him to care over as you think appropriate. That's slightly awkward wording. If you could take him to care over. I suppose you mean if you could take him into your care, maybe, but that's not correct word order. If you could take him and do as you think, whatever you want him to do, assess or manage, etc. So that's a little bit awkward, the phrasing there, a little bit awkward. We don't need that. If you want to talk about that, I would put it at the bottom here. You say in terms of his social and medical history, and then put the smoking part. Also, you should note that he was a smoker, blah, 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 blah. Okay? So, not too bad, not too bad. Just a few minor points there, but not too bad at all. Right. So, I'll save this as well, and I'll post this. I posted the first one in the channel, and I shall post this one there too. And you'll be able to download that at a later date. So we've got some more letters here. Don't know how many. What's this? It's 5. Well, we'll see. I don't have too much time. I've got the afternoon course with the teenagers in half an hour, so we'll try and get a few more done. I might even have a session this evening. It's possible. I might well do so because I've got to take the opportunity when I have the time. Monday, yesterday, I had a lot of work on lessons on and offline all day, no time. Today it's pretty quiet, so I might have another session this evening. We'll see how it goes. Okay? Anyway, let's get on with this one. Put the changes on. So, what are we doing? Your urgent assessment and management. Again, good. Straight to the point. That's what you want. Mr. Mateus, systemic heart disease, okay, right, good, yeah. Very good, very good. That's what you need. What do you want the reader to do? Tell them right from the start. Okay. Mr. Mateus, ability. That very good, very good. Very good phrasing. a progressive decline in his exercise ability. Very good. Although there's no chest pain, however, he has reported, well, reported, I would just use the simple past. Yeah, because presented at the same time he reported. So there's some very good phrasing here, very good phrasing. Good sentence, good phrasing, very good. He was obese. So I'm not sure when this examination occurred, because on examination, because I know it's in the past, but you're writing about it now, because I mean, it's not. I mean, so presumably he's still obese now. Yeah, you know, so he was obese, implied he was obese at that time, and maybe he's not obese now. But I think he's still a bit of a fatty. So I don't know if we would use the past there. Was obese, which one ankles, blood pressure was found to be. In addition, okay. Had been smoking before quitting 7 years ago. Medically, he has. So instead of just saying that, I would use an introductory expression, such as in terms of his social and medical history for your information or something. You know, it's like it's a marker, it's a signpost for the reader, and it breaks the letter up into different sections, which is always a good idea. So this is a good expression that you can use, or, you know, regarding his, oops, sorry, typey, regarding his social and medical history. That's always a good expression. And again, it like helps to signpost and mark out the different sections of the letter. Yeah. So Mr. Maffis had been smoking. Okay, we've got past perfect continuous. Very good. Before quitting, medically, he has had diabetes, present perfect, both of which are poorly controlled. So he has had, well, if they are poorly controlled now, the inference is he has them still. So we wouldn't use the past there. He has. Furthermore, he has been suffering. Good though. So we've got present perfect continuous to indicate how long the past action. So since 2011. Or you could use, if you don't want to use since as an adverb, you can make it for and say for 7 years, whatever the period is. So you could either say for 7 years or since. Okay, so that's good. So we've got past perfect continuous, pretty good. Present perfect continuous also. And what else have we got? Okay, consequently, and simple past. Very good. And you'll be both find these now. You see, very good expression. See, you see how if you use these, right, you can signpost, you can mark off the different sections. Pretty good. Okay, pretty good. Subject diagnosis is made. Well, you have made it. Why are you using passive? I wouldn't use it. You know, I diagnose. I presumptively diagnose. Is made. Why would you be using present perfect? Present simple passive. That's not so good. I wouldn't be using that. Which you're importunate. Importunate. That doesn't mean what you think it does. For which your evaluation would be, well, they don't want you to evaluate. They want your urgent assessment. So evaluation, assessment. Okay, I wouldn't use that. That doesn't mean what you think it does. And highly appreciated. Why do people keep using kindly, highly, these adverbs? It's a medical professional, and they are doing a job for which they are paid. They're not doing you a personal favor. You don't have to say this. Okay, but that aside, there's some good There's some good points in this. Good use of grammar to indicate chronology, that's good. Some good language here. Just one or two things I would maybe change. You know, I would be using that. Highly appreciated. Okay. Why using present simple passive? That could do with being changed. But apart from that, not too bad. Just one final thing. Two, 4, 6. So a little bit long. So you could cut the introduction. Yeah. You could just say, send our symptoms of acute heart failure. So you could cut that out. You could like lose, 7 or 8 words there. You can lose Mr. Matthews presented with a history. I mean, it's all about what you can omit. So you can maybe cut out that, cut out some of this, cut some of this down. You know, cut a few things out of this. You could lose maybe 10 or 12 words, maybe 14 words here. Also noted, you could join those two sentences, lose a few words there. You could join. You could actually put most of this in a single sentence or in two, and you could lose a few words there. So you could cut this down too. So it's not bad, but 2, 4, 6. It's all a bit long. Okay, let's see what else we've got now. Somebody's got a question. It'll have to be quick though, because we've got a few letters to do. Okay. I've turned your microphone on. Hello.
Sir, yes, sir. I have a question there. In the last letter, he wrote, although there was no chest pain, however, he reported sleepless night. He's using 2 subordinate conjunction in one sentence. Can we use?
Well, can you use them? Well, again, I haven't got time to do an in-depth analysis of every single one of these because there's quite a lot to do. But again, people are asking these kind of questions. It's like it's not that important. You're not aiming for an A. You're not aiming for 100% of accuracy. A minor point here or there is basically irrelevant. It's a task achievement. Oops, only got 10. Oh, time running out. I wouldn't be too concerned about very minor points unless they are actually wrong in correct. Okay, if it's just a question of style, that's not so important. If you're missing articles, if you're using the wrong prepositions, if you're misusing, confusing simple past and present perfect, if you're not using past perfect correctly, if your spelling's bad, etc., then those sorts of things, yeah, it's important. But a minor point, should I use the same word twice in a sentence? Well, doesn't really matter. Can I use 2 subordinate clauses in a conjunction? Doesn't really matter. For what you are, for what your purpose is, of most of you, very minor points, which I see all the time. Should I put a comma after this? Or it's basically irrelevant or quite unimportant. The main thing is task achievement. Do you do what you are asked? Do you write between 180 and 200 words? Do you include the relevant information? Do you leave out the irrelevant information? Do you write a letter? Do you use complete sentences? Do you avoid using too much jargon? Do you avoid writing in note form? That's what you've got to be concerned about. you know, not can I have this or this or that. I'm not saying that that's not so important, but in terms of the overall purpose of what you are asked, that stuff is, I wouldn't lose any sleep over that. I just wouldn't. Okay?
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Right. Let's get on with some more. Writing to, now, okay, here, now I wouldn't use that, nor would I have a full stop to refer Mr. Matthias, whose features are strongly suggestive. So we've got a relative clause, is good, whose features are. Your urgent management will be greatly appreciated. Okay, you could do that, but assessments, evaluation, I suppose you could leave it out and just put that, but okay. And again, why would it be greatly appreciated? Again, he's not doing you a personal favor. It's just not, you know? So anyway, but that's okay. Mr. Mattis presented, why do you put a dot? Why is there a full stop? We don't need it. Presented inability to lie down flat along with a 2-month edema. However, there was no chest pain. However, well, okay. Upon examination, BMI for the blood pressure, motor chest examination, addition were noted. Okay, it is worth to mention, is it, or worth mentioning? Not worth to mention. It is worth mentioning, or for your information, or regarding his social and medical history, etc. He was an ex-smoker, had poorly controlled diabetes and hypertension. Furthermore, he underwent, you could, instead of using that, you could say, you could like join these two sentences, as well as undergoing a coronary blah, 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 etc. To add more, we won't say that, to add like more, is also, and his medications list, to add more, nobody uses that. Including if you'd be above my prison like this, okay, with possible, I'd be great for your sooner. Why are you using a comparative? Now, right, in terms of the question I just answered, making obvious grammatical mistakes is important. What you were asking about was more or less a term of style, stylistics, you know, but in terms of making actual grammatical mistakes, yes, that is important. So for your sooner assistant, your soonest, well, I don't know, urgent instead of sooner, because that's a comparative. So we wouldn't be using that. Okay. So we got here. So I'm writing to require an urgent assistant. Okay, now, right, obvious mistakes, errors. We don't need an article, right? Because assistance, it's a noun, but it's an abstract. We don't need an article. Writing to request urgent assistance or your urgent assistance and management for this patient who had presented. Why are you using past perfect there? So, right, these are the, so in terms of the question which I answered about those, you know, can you use two subordinating things, blah, 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 that's irrelevant when compared with something such as this, where we've got an article that we don't need and we're using past perfect when simple past would do. I mean, so two obvious grammatical mistakes there. Okay, Mr. Matas presented at our care. At our care, what? At our care, what? Is this being used as a noun, an adjective? At our care facility, at our hospital, at our practice? Okay, with complaints which has affected his ability to exercise. Well, right, so to avoid this seemingly being part of the same thing, we want to have a comma and separate it so it's not connect it to the previous one. It's the ability to exercise, also, or including having sore ankles. I also had difficulties. Is he still having them? Is he still having them? So why is it had? I mean, okay, this is kind of difficult because in the case notes, which I don't think we should have used because they don't have any dates. So because we don't actually have a date, I'm not sure as to whether what the timeline is, chronology is. So, so I don't know, simple past, and then is it past, but is he still having problems? If so, then we wouldn't use that. We would use present perfect or present simple. He currently has. Okay, during chest examination, well, during his chest or during the chest examination, because it's a particular examination, apex speech, olfactory rejects systolic murmur, his ankles, edematous, so crepitations, also marked OET inversion, recorded. It's a little bit long, possibly we could cut some of that down. As per, okay, you can see, yeah, as per, according to his past medical and family history, it's a well-known hypertensive diabetic patient with poor adherence, and as a result, so if I make cardio, seems a long sentence. That's a bit of a long sentence. I would break that up. Oh yeah, and we don't need a period after Mr. That's a long sentence. Furthermore, that is a diabetic background. Do we need that? Is that relevant to his heart condition? I don't know. The cataracts, is that related? I think we could cut some of that down. It would be greatly appreciated if attend, well, who's the subject, if you can attend to a situation urgently and advising who, or to whom are you giving your advice? We basically attend to a situation urgently and advise. Who are we advising? Advising me, advising him, I don't know, and advise him. I don't know who's being advise him further in his management. Okay, so no, not too bad. Let me just check. $234. We could certainly lose maybe 20 words or so, maybe more out of that.